Okay, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for staying around, staying online. It's my pleasure to now introduce Blake Glover. He is the Natural Resource Conservation Services state conservationist. He has a long, storied history of conservation across the country, and in a good way. I meant that in a good way. He's been very supportive, I know, of American Farmland Trust and other partners across the state. So I'm very glad to have Blake as our state conservationist. And I'm also very excited to hear from him today. He's going to be talking about Inflation Reduction Act funds and probably some other programs there. So take it over, Blake.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Blake Glover, State Conservationist for NRCS here in New York, and I'm glad to be on this morning. Not sure I'm happy, Aaron, to be in the middle of folks going to lunch, but I'll try not to hold them too long today so they can get to lunch on time. I know I see Sean Murphy there. I know he needs to head to lunch as well, so just like me. All right, guys. Appreciate it. I just wanted to go through a few slides here, along with maybe there's some questions at the end as well. Kind of talk about the Inflation Reduction Act, along with some of our potential hiring actions that we will move forward with in FY24, and then close out with just a general talk on our urban ag projects around the state. All right, the Inflation Reduction Act started during the pandemic. There was a big talk about Inflation Reduction Act coming. In 2022, that is when the money and the bill was passed to allow NRCS to receive this IRA funding for conservation work around the country. So what is the inflation, just on the surface, what does the Inflation Reduction Act mean for? This is strictly New York dollars here. And these dollars do not include Farm Bill dollars. That is a big distinction for us. So currently they are working on the Farm Bill. There's going to be a 1-year extension on the Farm Bill, I believe, along with trying to get a new Farm Bill in place in 2024. So in the next slide, it may make a little bit more sense, but I will focus strictly on what funding we are receiving from the Inflation Reduction Act here in New York. So it's the same programs as it would be in a Farm Bill. So we have our Environmental Quality Incentive Program, along with our Conservation Stewardship Program, our ASEP or easement program, and then RCPP, which is a national focus in IRA, the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. That is a national focus, so you see that zeroed out there. There's no dollars coming to the state currently for that. And then in 2024, 2023 applications for RCPP in New York, there were no applications funded for RCPP. That just came out last week on that. So, Inflation Reduction Act. So in FY24, which just closed out, and we're into the new year now, we received $2 million in EQIP and a little over $2 million in CSP, for a total of an additional $4 million for EQIP and CSP. So you can see there's a big jump in FY24, $13 million in EQIP, and additional $3.7 million in 2024. And then you can just see there 2025 and 26, and then we start to receive some easement money in 25 and 26. And the reason why you see it dropping off to $0 in 27, 28, 29 is because the money is to be expended by 2031, meaning if we write a contract in 2023, that contract has to be expended, closed out by September 30th, 2031. And so the whole point of front loading this funds is allowing us to administer the contracts between at the end of 26 all the way to 31 to make sure that by 31 all of our contracts are zeroed out in IRA funding. And these are projections, but I would say the projections for 2024 were about $7 million off. We received an additional $7 million in EQIP alone for 2024. So it may make a little sense now. So these program dollars are for FY24, and they show also Farm Bill dollars and IRA funding. So the top number for just taking CSP, for instance. So the top number is our Farm Bill dollars that we received this year, $5.9 million in Farm Bill dollars. And we also received $3.8 million in IRA funding for CSP. And you can see they're just going down. EQIP, we received $13.279 million in Farm Bill dollars for EQIP. And then we also received $20 million for IRA funding for EQIP. And so you can see on the previous slide, we were projected to receive around $13 million for IRA funding for this year. We were bumped up to an additional $7 million for a total of $20 million. So what does IRA mean for a state like New York? If you look down at the bottom, so historically, NRCS has worked off Farm Bill dollars only. So just from a Farm Bill standpoint, we would receive $21 million for Farm Bill activities for the whole state. With the IRA funding, that means overnight we went from a $21 million budget for Farm Bill programs to a $45 million budget for Farm Bill programs overnight. And that's our struggle, right? Staffing, trying to get more boots on the ground, working with our partners, etc. How do we unlock those dollars, or how does a producer or farmer unlock those dollars? So last year, I believe there was a little over 30 climate smart and forestry mitigation activities that were identified that a farmer could sign up for to address resource concerns on their property. We've upped that to a little over 55 or so. I believe there's an additional 26 or 27 practices added. And so for the IRA funding, not for the Farm Bill funding, this is where it gets a little tricky. So for the IRA funding, a producer has to select one of those 50 or so practices, just one, to be eligible for the IRA funding. And then after they select the one, then the whole suite of NRCS practices open up after that. And so that is a struggle internally at the field office level, trying to make sure producers understand that and making sure that they understand what the qualifications are. So in the chat, before I got started talking, I put in the link for this PDF of all of the practices that were identified for IRA funding. So you can take a look at that. You can print that out and see the practices that were identified for FY24. And the good thing about this is, so we started 2023 with 30 or so practices. The agency added an additional 20 or so practices in 2024. And now they're looking at additional practices for 2025. And so as partners out there, if you're seeing something that you think addresses climate from an agency standpoint that you think that needs to be added to this list, there will be a call for partners to push up ideas on climate smart activities. One of the changes that came about because of the funding levels that we're receiving is the chief decided to raise the minimum annual payment for the conservation stewardship program. In previous years, the minimum payment was $1,500. And so in a state like New York that is made up of a lot of small acreage producers, beginning farmers that are on those small acreages, along with urban ag around the state, um, we had a hard time drumming up interest because of the minimum payment and because of the requirements of installing some of these practices. So I'm excited to see if we're going to hit the mark a little bit with this increase in annual payments to small acreage and urban producers, because that would be a big turn for a state like New York that's made up that way. So what that means for a small acreage producer that would receive an annual payment or minimum payment of $4,000 is our contracts are 5 years long. And so at the end of that contract, they would receive at a minimum $20,000 over that 5 year period. And that could be beneficial to these small acreage producers from an operation standpoint. Real quick on our hiring, obviously we're going to have to hire some folks to be able to handle this amount of opportunity that's coming ahead of us or that is upon us currently. And so currently we sit around 145 employees around the state. The hope is that we are adding about 50 new employees to get to around 185, 190 by the end of this year. And I think that's where we'll sit for a while to see how we can manage that from a state level. And then if there's a need for more, we obviously will go out with more announcements. But that's I think that's where we need to be. There are opportunities for partnerships with our partners. We have quite a few beneficial partnerships for more boots on the ground, from districts to other entities around the state, from easements to outreach, you name it. We have great partners that are helping us get this work done. But we're always looking for more partners, and especially during these times of funding levels the way they are, we're always looking for more partners. So if you know of a partner that's willing to partner with NRCS in a way in which we can both benefit from that partnership, I am all ears and would welcome a conversation on that.
Hey, Blake, before you get too far away from CSP, there was a question in the chat.
Okay.
Will there be any opportunity for revisions, additions to existing CSP forestry, and I would imagine any existing CSP contracts?
I see. No, we're not going backwards to look at those current contracts that we have in place. These are only for new contracts. All right. Urban agriculture. We had the opportunity over the last year and a half or so to really target how we would address the push from USDA as a department and also NRCS as an agency on urban agriculture. We have decided here in New York to add 3 urban conservationists to our operations. Nicole Kabisky in East Aurora, and Molly Turry in Syracuse, and Marco Alvarez in Troy. And you can see their coverage areas for each of them as well. And also in covering New York City would be Liz Camps out of our Riverhead office. Urban agriculture for NRCS and especially for New York has been huge over the last couple of years, especially from our high tunnel initiative standpoint. We have increased that tremendously over previous years. And we're looking to see where we can increase that a little more. And you know, on the previous slide, I talked about partnerships, and we're always looking for partnerships, not only from a technical standpoint from some of our bigger operations around the state, from dairies to big farm grounds, but we're also looking for partnerships to provide us with some boots on the ground and outreach efforts in our urban areas as well. And I'm excited to announce that through the Secretary's initiative on urban, he announced that there were 17 urban offices to be stood up around the country, New York City being one of those. And I'm excited to announce that we will have an office in New York City, in Brooklyn, more specifically. And that office will open in the spring of 2024. Pretty exciting times for that. And we will staff that office with up to 3 individuals, a district conservationist, a planner, along with a engineer. Some of the partners on the call today may be helping us out with some EWP upstate. Well, we have a lot of EWP in the city from previous hurricanes that we're dealing with that is taking a lot of our time and effort from our office in Syracuse. And so we're excited to be able to put an engineer down there to try to handle some of those requests as well. Exciting times from an urban standpoint. So please reach out to those urban conservationists if you have questions within the respected areas. I'll share this slide deck with Aaron, and he can push this out so you guys have the map. It's also on our website as well. I believe, Aaron, that may be my last question or last slide. And I kind of went over that kind of quick, and I feel like every time I've been in front of a group, I'm always talking about Inflation Reduction Act. And usually folks are hearing it more than once, but that's okay. I need to hear things more than once to allow it to sink in a little bit. I appreciate the Empire chapter inviting me today, and look forward to continued support of our partners within this organization and the chapter itself. So thank you, Aaron. Thank you, chapter, today.
Thank you, Blake. Appreciate that. Is there any questions or comments for Blake here? We do have some time. We're keeping Sean from lunch, but I think he can hold out. So yeah, is there any questions or comments?
Yeah, I'll offer a question for the group, Blake. You mentioned staffing as a problem for NRCS, and can you expand on that a little bit? I know that other agencies are going through the same struggle, and it might be helpful to hear what everybody's doing.
Sure. So our biggest struggle has been our flagship position, which has been a soil conservationist position. That position requires a series of soils classes along with plant science courses and a little bit additional chemistry classes as well to be eligible. And NRCS is the only federal agency that utilizes that position, a soil conservationist position. So you know, in the 80s and 90s, there were universities and colleges around the country that we could talk to, and they would teach to our qualifications for this position, our requirements for this position. So as time goes on, universities and colleges around the country have different objectives, different things that they would like to do rather than only to teach for one federal agency. And so we decided to make a switch as an agency, not getting away from our soil conservationists, still advertising soil conservationists, but also advertising a natural resource specialist position. And what that allows us to do, that allows us to reach additional students that may not have those soils classes that a soil conservationist position would require, but it allows us to reach those caliber of students that we think could best suit us and benefit us as an agency moving forward. So in the last 6 months or so, as we've made that switch, we have saw an increase in the caliber of students that we're seeing on these panels for positions around the state that is really exciting. And we're looking forward to filling our holes fairly quickly with this position in FY24. So that is our struggle right now. Our big struggle is on engineering. We do have the option, and we have been utilizing some hiring incentive for engineers just to be competitive with the private sector. But that sometimes isn't enough either for us to bring on engineers. So that is our bigger struggle as engineers. I imagine if we were in a room, a lot of folks would be shaking their heads right now saying, yes, that's it for us too, because I hear that a lot. But on the bright side, we're seeing an uptick in applications, and we look to see where we end up by September 30th of this year on our hiring front, and see if we can hit our mark and be done with a lot of our hiring practices and focus on conservation implementation at some point.
Thanks for that, Blake. I know a lot of agencies, I know the state agencies as well as down to the district level, all looking for those people to grow their offices to, I guess, take advantage of all the funding that's coming towards us. So I guess we'll, and as you mentioned, reimbursement, probably the biggest obstacle. That's something I think the whole industry, if you will, is going to have to rethink and come to grips with in terms of being competitive and offering something that young people are going to want to get excited about, besides the awesome job that it is, and decide to pick their careers with us. So wish you luck on that.
Thank you both for that interaction. Heath has been posting some information with a link to the jobs and then some of the basic requirements. So take a look there. Of course, I think everyone on here probably has a job. So
looks like Heath is recruiting today.
Yeah, he's double timing it. He's like a multitasking here, which I'm not surprised. So yeah,
all the help that we can get out here, especially in the West area. So definitely pass it along to anybody in your network.
Thanks, Heath. Actually, I'll post a link. Also, AFT, I'm hiring somebody as well to help with NRCS. So I think it counts. I think it's okay if I put it up there because the job is to help with NRCS programs. Anybody else have question? You have Blake here, and we've got a few minutes, and so this is a unique opportunity. He's ready to answer any of your questions.
Like, I had a question as a new natural resource specialist, and like just looking at those courses and such that I am looking to get. I know there's been a little bit of talk about getting, a list of what schools you guys would recommend or what's going to count for degrees. And I'm just curious, if there's an update on that, or if there's something coming down for the new natural resource specialists who are looking to get those classes.
Yes, thank you for that question, Mary. So I know that I have a national leadership team meeting next week in Minnesota. I think this is part of the agenda discussion. I know the chief of NRCS, those that are not NRCS, the chief is looking into universities that the agency can partner with to be able to address some of those needs of 401 series positions that we're bringing on board that may want to increase their buying power, I would say, for other positions around the country that are tied to that requirement of the soil 457 series position, soil conservationist position. And so, yes, more to come on that. I don't have any definite answers on that, but there has been talk about the agency looking at universities to maybe do some online courses for those types of courses that are needed for 401 series positions around the country.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
And I will say, I wasn't on the call earlier, but we have also looked at, from a IRA standpoint, some of those high cost practices that have been off the table, just because we haven't had the funds that we have today to be equitable in how we deliver our programs. So things like probably the bigger one right now is the cap and flare systems that are now on the table from an NRCS standpoint and are eligible through the IRA funding. Those are on the table for us to fund, along with maybe partner with districts on some of this funding as well. So that is exciting too, to see where we can partner on some of these bigger contracts with some of the funding that we have coming down as well.
Yeah, so earlier we did have the soil and water district employee bring up, so this is a previous discussion where you weren't here for, but
Okay.
I think maybe if you could give a comment, if not, that's fine. So what they said was, from a planner standpoint, some funding options such as EQIP make the process so tedious and time consuming for both the planner and the farm that many farms don't want to work with them with those programs. I have not run into as much of a road bump with the state program so far, which has been good. And then wondering if others have had that same issue. But have you heard that in your role? And
yeah, so what I can say to that is that internally NRCS recognizes that there are some roadblocks that either have been put in from a statute standpoint from Congress, or from an agency standpoint, from what the agency wants to see, or from a state standpoint of a state conservationist having a bright idea as to what he or she thinks is best for the state. But we could probably do that 2 or 3 years ago, when we could manage our funds a little bit better. And so internally, we have been looking at some of those roadblocks that have been put in place because of funding levels were manageable back then, to what we can really kind of streamline a little bit from our planning to our operational standpoints as well. So yes, that is a good question. Yes, we are looking at some of those roadblocks. Will they all go away? Absolutely not. But I think there's some around the state that we can look at and manage a little bit better. And I know that the chief is really, really harping on that from the national office level, of things that may be in place just from a history standpoint, that it's entrenched in NRCS culture, but is it the right thing to do in 2024, I'm sorry.
Blake, Sean, I have one quick question. regarding roadblocks. One that I've brought up at a few meetings in the past is conservation activity plan development and being on the general application schedule. You know, so if somebody is interested in developing a comprehensive nutrient management plan and going through NRCS to get cost share assistance for plan development, and let's say they fill out an application a half a month after your deadline, they're having to wait a whole year to be able to just get that application reviewed and funded or not. And I know that, you know, the plans weren't a huge, they're not a huge cost compared to a lot of other things. And I wonder if there was any movement on getting conservation activity plans funded in a more timely manner.
So we have looked at that a little bit. Appreciate that question, Sean. We have looked at that a little bit here in state. I believe it's posted on our website, but it may not be yet, but it will be. So we're having multiple signups, and so to capture or catch some of those things that you're talking about there, Sean, where someone may miss a deadline or may miss a sign up period and have to wait a full year. We're trying to get the word out that you know, starting this year, we're having multiple signups for EQIP and CSP to be able to utilize our funding levels the way they are. And it also helps out, you know, those producers that may miss a application period for whatever reason, right? So we're hoping to capture some of that in our next, or see what we can capture in our next sign up after this one is done, to kind of go back and see lessons learned on that.
Do you see that being a semi-annual thing or a quarterly initiative?
So I believe, I have to look at the thing again there, Sean, but I believe this year we at least have 2 EQIP signups, along with we may have to have 3 CSP signups to utilize the funding, but we'll see how those applications are coming in. It all depends on the amount of applications. I don't want to get to the point where it's entrenched in our operations to have these rolling signups, and also giving producers false hope of being able to be funded when I know the money is not there. So that is what we're trying to manage a little bit with these signups, and we'll see where this is the first year, so we'll see where we're at moving forward on how to manage that.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat. Are enhanced support cost share for cover crops, pollinator habitat, and forest management through EQIP or CSP or both?
I don't know the technical answer to that. I would say yes, but I'm not sure. And Heath, go ahead.
If I could jump in, just one thing that I would say, and how we're working with our local soil and water district, is that, you know, if the district is applying for some cover crop through the state grant programs, they're just making sure that their cost share is at around the 60-65% range. And then we are trying to come back on alongside with CSP, and for our payment rates, it's about 30% for CSP. So it's really just a great way to pair both of those programs and really maximize what the farm can get. So, I mean, that's something that I would definitely encourage soil and water districts to be working right alongside NRCS to use both of their programs.
Thanks, Heath.
I was also just going to mention, as far as like processing conservation activity plans, We do have a process here in New York State called Act Now, and that allows us to fund and get those contracts obligated a lot quicker and sooner than what it would typically take us, to pre-approve everything on the list and then obligate them at that time. So know that if you have any participants that are interested in that and are applying, that those are going to be some of the first applications that are going to be working their way through the process.
Okay, anything else for Blake? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Blake. Thanks again for joining us and taking time out of your busy schedule. It was actually really good to make yourself available and have some of these questions and answered or discussed. So I will go ahead and volunteer Blake to say that I'm sure he would be comfortable with anybody here reaching out to him and having a more discussion or other questions. So thanks again. And with that, oh, did somebody just ask a question? Oh, yes. Oh, Heath is applauding. Thanks, Heath.
Is Heath trying to work for an award or something?
Yeah, Heath is really, really bringing it today to this meeting. So I appreciate that. No, it's been really good, this interaction. So I'm sure Heath is now starving after all this effort he's put into this meeting. So we're going to segue now to lunch. So I cannot virtually provide that. Obviously, so we're going to take a break and we'll come back at 1 o'clock for Bethany. And so I think that I'm afraid to hang up on this call. So I will keep the line open. I feel like if I shut it down, then it'd mess everybody up. So I'm going to leave it open. So I would just say mute and turn off your screens. We all know this routine now. I don't need this on the recording. So